This is like a bad dream I once had. Here we go!
Congratulations, customer! Your SAM unit is performing at peak capacity. Dirt alert! Dirt alert!
Well done, Captain!
Time to take out the trash!
That's the last of it.
All right, MSI. I'm not one for rousing speeches, but the captain needs our help. So get in there and fight!
And ready to kill Dirt! Polluted verified! Identified. The dropped object is an organic in rest mode.
Time to collect the flying bounty.
This will be over soon.
Substance is resistant to cleaning efforts. This area has been sanitized.
Wait for company camera.
Caution! Substance is resistant to cleaning efforts.
I have your back, Captain.
Error. Oh.
All right, MSI. I'm not one for rousing speeches, but the captain needs our help. So get in there and fight!
Captain. No.
All right, MSI. I'm not one for rousing speeches, but the captain needs our help. So get in there and fight!
Mega message!
Everyone all right?
Dispensing body bag.
All right, right, MSI. I'm not one for rousing speeches, but the captain needs our help. So, get in there and fight!
Self-classification. Flawlessly finished. Scoured with prejudice.
Put him down! Waste of company ammo. Time to collect the mine down. Waste of company ammo. Take him down! What?
Dirt alert! Dirt alert! Identified. The dropped object is an organic in rest mode.
That's the last of them.
Stay down.
Resistant to cleaning efforts. Bag required. Substance is resistant to cleaning efforts.
Well, look who it is. I'll be damned. I was prepping the studio for our announcement. And the convict. The vicar. You know, most people, once they're out of prison...
Oh, I would go anywhere to see you fall, sir.
And... Oh, I had heard you were dragging around a repurposed janitorial mechanical. My staff jokes that it's because you're a walking pile of refuse.
Interactive database updated. The unique organic substance labeled Chairman has been classified.
When you go off and get yourself shot, try to avoid taking one to the face. My word! You've correctly identified the most recognizable... It's a wonder what Phineas saw in you. Then again, he's an insane person. Yeah, but that's between us. As far as my adoring citizens will know, we've turned a dangerous crap. Oh yes, go on, wake them up, add more mouths to feed. I don't know what half-baked plans that simpleton in a lab coat has been leading you through, but it's... Let me ask you something, Captain. Have you at any point thought about not fucking up our entire...
I believe we could ask you the same.
I'm making actual progress towards stabilization. Oh, right. This... We don't. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, Cap.
sanitized.
Waste of company ammo.
Here we go!
What's the target?
Stay down.
Waste of company ammo.
Taking. Waste of company ammo.
Everything in my life has been leading up to this point. I believe I am ready for this.
Difficult job ahead? Consider equipping a pack of
Captain, you have an uncanny talent for complicating my life. I don't like being played. When you delivered Wells into my hands, I was operating under the assumption that I'd won your loyalty. You've disrupted the balance of power. You've upset the natural order. I'm afraid I can't. To your credit, Captain, you are one of the colony's finest specialists. Your technical abilities are beyond. For all your talents, you are the enemy. You make a nuance. Dr. Wells is being held in my custody. His cooperation will prove invaluable. All that's left to do is put down this riot, arrest you, and then get on with the bloody business. Fair enough. This prison is equipped with an automechanical warden. And don't worry, I will inform...
Sterling is this unit's middle name.
Here's a little trick I learned in prison. Too tough! Find something else! No!
activated.
I'll take your confession now! Understood. I'll keep my head down.
Centrifuge mode activated. Substance is resistant to cleaning efforts. Sensors indicate a
We've got a fight on our hands.
centrifuge mode activated.
Your life was merely an illusion anyway. You must get past that armor. This is bad! On your left hand. Good hit! Try something else, Captain!
Medical contamination occurring. Object is tuned to be specialist.
May you find peace in death. Captain, to your left.
coming up. On your right, customer.
Your life was merely an illusion anyway.
Level neutralized.
Here's a little trick I learned in prison.
Clean cycle set to industrial state.
I'll take your confession now.
Centrifuge mode activated.
Processing beginning.
Incoming. May you find peace in death.
Object is tuned to be speckless.
Richard.
Sterling is this unit's middle name. Coward with prejudice.
I'm going! I'm going!
To your left. Please pick up all.
Your life was merely an illusion anyway.
Cycle F2, Industrial Stain. Course detected. You make it dirty, Sam cleans it up.
I'll take your confession now!
Sanitation and cleanup required.
Never anger a man of the cloth!
Clean cycle F2, Industrial Stain. You make it dirty, Sam cleans it up.
Behind!
Caution!
I'm going.
Unable to take aim. Be acquired.
Yes, I'll step lively. Careful, you're wounded! May you find peace in death.
Navigating to requested location.
Captain, behind you! I'll make my way there! A fine hit, Captain! Understood. I'll keep my head down.
Object is tuned to be specialists.
I'll take your confession now!
Why won't you just die?
Cleaning cycle complete.
You don't know how glad I am to see you. You did the right thing. Akande was a monster. Her death was much deserved, and long overdue. And you lunatic, you broke into the board's own fortress just to rescue one doddering old man. You are absolutely out of your mind, and I can't begin to thank you enough. I'm all right, thanks to you. Akande wanted my cooperation. I'm quite sure she would have beaten it out of me if you hadn't arrived. You've broken the board's stranglehold on this colony, and you saved my life. You and I are going to have to work harder than ever to save Halcyon. Earth has gone dark. We haven't received a single message in 3 years. There's been no communication, no signals, nothing. 2 years ago, the Earth's Directorate's frigate disappeared on their way back to Earth. We don't know what they discovered when they arrived, or if they arrived at all.
Earth is only an idea to us. But that idea is the bedrock the colony is built upon. If people were to find out it's gone dark, the shock could be too much to bear.
I don't want to imagine what'll happen once news gets out. Let's just keep this between us for now. We're in serious trouble, my friend. Do you know what this means for Halcyon? We can't rely on Earth for support anymore. We've been cut loose. We're entirely on our own. Yes. I heard it from Akande herself. She tried to pressure me into joining her side, you see. Tried to make me real. She was half right. We are alone, and we're going... You might have heard of the Earth Directorate's frigate. Half the colony's entire military was on that ship. They were returning to Earth when they vanished. That was 2 years ago. We haven't heard a word from them. Yes, Akande mentioned as much. Earth hasn't. Akande had kept the truth to herself, perhaps with good reason. Can you imagine what would have happened if word got out? I wasn't trying to hide the truth from you, but after... Yes, I experimented on the Hope's colonists. Each of my experiments... You are my first and only success. I didn't tell you about the others because I didn't want to. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Law knows I won't. My apologies. I need to get a hold of my... If you have any more questions, ask me. I don't know what happened, but something must have gone horribly wrong. I don't know why Earth... We have no connection back to Earth, and return is likely impossible. Yes, you're right. We must begin the revival process immediately, starting with the Hope's brightest minds, and then we're going to fix this damn colony. We're going to need a leader, and I can't imagine a better person for the job. I can't tell... When I revived you, we can't save Halcyon on our own. We are not a colony anymore. Our last connection to Earth has been...
The OSI teaches that everything in the universe happens according to the grand plan. But the stranger that arrived in Halcyon was an unplanned variable. From the moment he landed in Emerald Vale, his actions altered the course of history. The events on Tartarus brought about the end of the board's authority. But the board's mistakes would haunt the colony for decades to come. The damage they left behind would require the work of a generation to repair. Dr. Phineas Wells began reviving a handful of the Hope's colonists. Engineers, scientists, technicians, and intellectuals. They were among the brightest minds the Earth had ever sent out into the stars. The Hope scientists and engineers woke up in a colony descending headlong into total collapse. With no way to return to Earth, they had no choice but to band together and devote themselves to the cause of saving Halcyon. The people of Halcyon were nothing if not hardy. In the absence of the board's authority, many of the colony's settlements banded together with a single purpose in mind: survival. Life was especially hard in the years to come. Some towns dissolved by attrition and starvation, but most of them found a way to carry on. In the years to come, Halcyon was forced to reckon with its newfound freedom. The board was gone, and for better or worse, the colony was responsible for its own destiny. Sanjar's civil liberties and worker-centric policies were slow to catch on with the other corporations. But as Halcyon began its long, arduous journey toward recovery, many of Terra 2's smaller townships started adopting MSI's alternative corporate structure, and eventually became entirely self-sufficient. In the coming years, many of these townships managed to eke by, where otherwise they might have starved. Consumed by paranoia, Lilia Hagen took Sublight Salvage in a controversial direction, openly accusing board officials of an extraterrestrial conspiracy. One day, an accident at the Groundbreaker's docking bay silenced her forever. Time would tell if her replacement could keep the Sublight family together. The collapse of Edgewater left its workers bereft of any purpose in life. Most of them made their way to Adelaide McDevitt's camp, hoping to ingratiate themselves into her favor. Adelaide accepted only a few to her community. The rest were turned away and likely died of starvation. Nevertheless, Adelaide's camp grew into a well-established town. Adelaide McDevitt refused to cooperate with the ongoing effort to save Halcyon from collapse. A sympathetic deserter stole a copy of her research and delivered it to the Hope's scientists. It is unclear how useful Adelaide's research was. An optimistic estimate suggests her work may have bought Halcyon another few years of survival. Adelaide would never know. She died that winter. Under the leadership of Junlei Tennyson, the Groundbreaker held firm against corporate influence. The ship's mechanical stability gave Junlei the time to educate a promising generation of engineers, schooled in her family's traditions. The future of the Groundbreaker looks promising. The rediscovery of the Hope and the abandonment of the lifetime employment program forced Byzantium to come to terms with some uncomfortable realities about the state of Halcyon. While Byzantines were reluctant to surrender the luxuries they'd grown accustomed to, the board's diminished authority gave them little choice in the matter. Nearly everyone had to learn to make do with less. Some even had to get jobs. It was a dark time indeed. Your influence shifted Ellie's perspective. She finally admitted, albeit grudgingly, that she just might need other people. Sometimes. With a steady income from the life insurance payouts, she was finally able to afford a ship of her own. She hired a small crew and flew supply missions to communities on the fringe. Some of them were even legal. Life in Halcyon was sobering for Felix Millstone. The grand revolution he dreamed of never came. There was no great awakening for the colony, no celebrations in the streets. There was only the hard, desperate work of trying to repair a broken colony. Felix never had a head for numbers, but if there was labor to be done, he was there to help. Eventually, Felix realized that the work of a revolution was done with two hands. As much as he enjoyed his adventures aboard the Unreliable, the vicar, known as Max, eventually decided that it was time to move on, to live out the life he had sought so long to create. He knew there were many in the colony who carried burdens much worse than the ones he had struggled with, and he devoted himself to easing their suffering wherever he could. He only ever took up arms again to defend the defenseless. Unshackled from a lifetime of striving and fighting the universe and himself, Vicar Maximilian de Soto was finally at peace. Once the matter with the Hope colonists was resolved, Junlei bashfully asked Parvati if she'd like to join her permanently on the Groundbreaker, and Parvati enthusiastically, if somewhat awkwardly, agreed. The stories of her adventures spread across the colony, and Parvati soon found herself the center of attention. Having served as the engineer of a renowned spacecraft, tramp freighters and wildcat miners sought her out by name. And in no time, she was a fixture in the Groundbreaker's mechanical ecosystem. She and Junlei were never far apart. Nyoka returned to Monarch to take another crack at making a permanent life for herself. She formed the Charon Group, an MSI subsidiary of ragtag survivalists and wilderness experts. Anyone in need of a guide, or just looking to throw back a beer and swap stories, could find her camping on the trail or clearing an infestation. The SAM unit that accompanied you spread awareness of the product line's superior sanitation and maintenance capabilities across what was left of the colony. This led to a boost in SAM unit sales. Did you know that SAM units are the longest-lasting, toughest-acting cleaning solution in Halcyon? Minister Clark was released from house arrest, and his contact with you gave him a sense of renewed purpose and vigor. Once it became clear that no help would be coming from Earth, he threw his considerable efforts and talents into helping Halcyon manage the crisis before it. As for Dr. Phineas Wells, he spent his remaining years in his orbital lab. Though he was always haunted by the failures of his past, he was determined to make things right by building toward the future. The revival project was hard and painful work, but in the end, despite limited resources, over half the Hope's colonists were successfully revived. Even after Wells passed away, the Hope scientists and engineers worked night and day to pull Halcyon from the brink of collapse. Their efforts continue to this day, which may be reason enough for optimism. Dr. Wells laid the groundwork for the project to save the colony, but he would never live to see the fruits of his labor. He passed away a few years later. His work was carried on by the scientists and engineers he revived. Life will never be the same in Halcyon. It is widely agreed that the colony has a chance of stabilizing within a generation, owing to the hard work and determination of the surviving colonists. Recovery is a distant goal, and the path is long and uncertain. But the people of Halcyon carry on, determined as ever. And what about you, the unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon? Long after Wells passed away, you carried on his work with more energy, determination, and brilliance than he could ever muster. The years that followed were hard, but Halcyon survived by the efforts of the Hope's most promising colonists, the greatest of which was you. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.